Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and discuss the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. We have a very jam-packed show today. A lot of stuff has happened over the last few weeks, believe it or not. And this is actually the triumphant return of the MagicJank podcast to the airways after taking a week off because we were all in Vegas last week. And
take me back.
I know, right? Yeah, it was pretty darn cool. But like a bunch of professionals, all of our recording equipment was at our respective homes, and I don't know about you guys, but the additional $100 or whatever for another check luggage to bring everything over, we'll get a mobile recording setup one of these days. We just didn't quite have it ready this time around, so don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll have some on the ground coverage in the future, no doubt. But in any event, we're back here now. And we're very excited. So my name is Graham. I go by HamHawks42 on the internet. And I'm joined by Seafair Verder Jr. and Damien F16. So how are we doing, gentlemen? Carlo, let's start with you. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Enjoying partially being back from Vegas, but, also having sort of like the post-con stuff that's going on. But, happy to get back to, the stream and my LGS, everything like that. So it's been a good time.
Heck yes. And
Nice.
Damien, how about you, my friend?
I'm good. Yeah, Vegas was awesome. I want to talk about the crazy night we had on Saturday night. It was wild at 2 a.m. at our Airbnb, but I can't talk about it because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So
Facts.
So I've heard.
It was a wild time. And also the MagicCon. MagicCon was excellent, and there was lots to see and do. I got to play and see, people who work in the game at WotC and stuff, also other pros and just content creators, and there was some networking. I bought some stuff. I opened some money cards and sold them to vendors, and got the whole con experience. That was my first MagicCon. I've been to GPs, but I haven't been to a large event since GPs became MagicCons. So now it's got this weird like Comic-Con vibe with all it's way more casual focused, right? And the upstairs with the artists and all that wild stuff, huge sets, and I was just like, holy crap, that is it always like this? And I imagine it was a little bit more overdone because of Worlds and not a regular, con or whatever, but super cool. So yeah, doing well.
Well, I was at all three of the MagicCons that took place in the United States this year. I was very fortunate to be able to make those happen. And Philly and Minneapolis had a very similar energy, and honestly, the amount of play space was comparable. Like, believe it or not, like the Vegas Hall was bigger. Like Artist Alley was significantly larger.
Huge.
Yeah, it was massive. And so, yes, it was the biggest of the three. Like, there's no question about it. But it wasn't as much bigger as you might have guessed. The other cons were also pretty darn huge. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was exciting.
Cool. Yeah, I think we all had a great time, and it was great to meet everybody and Team Jank united in real life for the first time, which was super cool. But
Absolutely. Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
we'll do it again.
I gotta say, this team, everybody was just as, and this is just kind of, this is totally candid. We haven't gotten to the corporate plug yet. We'll get there, don't worry. But honestly, getting to meet so many members of Team MagicJank, everybody is exactly as warm and just awesome as I wanted them to be. I had a great time hanging out with you guys. And, a bunch of us did stay at the same Airbnb that the company MagicJank.com managed, got for us and actually nailed down. It was so cool.
Yeah.
I got to say, the experience was absolutely fantastic. And it was funny, too, because as a result, we spent the weekend in Vegas, and I get to say that I stayed up until 3 a.m. playing Dan most nights, and it was exactly the Vegas experience that I wanted.
Damn it, Ham! I was trying to add some mystery. People thought we had Coke and strippers and I don't know, champagne.
Hey, you can have strippers and Dan.
It was Dan. We were playing. It was a $2,000 Dan set. Shout out to Isaiah, our team member, who brought his all basic Alpha Islands. It was very pretty.
It was
that's
lovely.
That's what was going on at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
In any event, so with that, let's move on to the formal, corporate plug moment. Huge thank you to MagicJank.com for a lot, but especially for making Vegas happen for the team. It was an incredible experience. But yeah, huge thank you to MagicJank.com for making this show and many others like it possible. MagicJank.com is a website where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering gear, as well as just about any other product that might actually appeal to, the audience of Magic the Gathering. If you make, say, fancy dice or, apparel, and you want to get it out there and you think Magic fans, might be interested, register as a seller over on MagicJank.com. It is a marketplace where you can sell those kinds of products. So definitely come over. We have some of the best rates in the industry as far as, you know, hosting fees for those kind of things, or, you know, the for selling those kinds of things. So definitely come check it out. It would mean the world to us. MagicJank.com. Thank you so much for all that you do for making this stuff possible.
Yep.
All right.
That's awesome.
So our first item on the agenda is, in fact, to talk more about MagicCon Vegas. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of the basics, but the reality was there was just so much going on. We had the World Championships going up on the second floor. And on top of that, one of the things that I find so fascinating about the Magic community is the level of celebrity and how accessible people are. You know, like during the World Championship, there was this little like velvet rope kind of wall set up to establish the walkways versus the play area. But at any point, you could be walking down the little walkway and there would be World Championship matches where like thousands of dollars are on the line happening like 5 feet away from you. You know? And so, like, just on your way past, you know, it's like, I'm just gonna head down to play a game of Commander, but on the way, like, hey, what's in Simon Nielsen's hand? Let me just take a second and just kind of look over his shoulder. It was really cool, and being that close to the action was something that was really special, and I really enjoyed it. Because at the other pro tours, in Philadelphia and in Minneapolis, you could. It was open. The space was open. You were welcome to be there. But in Vegas, it was like, it was a pathway to get to and from some of the free play areas. It was definitely more centrally located. You know, with the other conventions, you kind of had to seek it out and find it to participate or to watch.
Interesting.
Yeah, but in Vegas, I feel like it was much more centrally located, and it was really cool to see.
Yeah, so, you could take the escalator up from the main floor, and it bring you right to the World Championship area, and you had to walk through that pathway to get to, like, the art of Magic. So you got to see it all. And yeah, that's true. And granted, I only went to Philly before this, and it was on like the third level of the convention center in Philly. And you could watch the pros play, just as long as you didn't make any noise, right? But I felt like it was much different in Vegas because it was in such open space and you could hear the noise from the main stage in the World Championship area. But, you know, you could also walk right up to the coverage booth that you would see if you were watching like the Magic stream, which I thought was pretty neat. Because you could see that happening in person. And then you have to remember, you know, here's me walking with my phone this way, like live streaming, walking through the world's play area, forgetting that the stream is on a delay. So, oops, what if I reveal something on my live stream that doesn't come up on the Magic stream for like an hour? And I'm like, oh, wait a second, maybe I should not face the coverage stage when I'm doing this.
Yeah, you think they would be more cognizant of the fact that could happen. Like, they're usually pretty careful about that. Even just being within earshot is crazy. Like, if I'm playing against somebody and then they take their draw step and I hear this, oh, like from downstairs, it's like, oh, shit. Well, I know they didn't draw a basic land there. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, even noise can give so much information away that it's kind of amazing that they... that they let that happen. Like Cam was saying, you could walk right past that. You could literally see what's in the dude's hand. It's like, but pretty cool, and it lets you kind of rub elbows or bump elbows, whatever, rub shoulders with a lot of the Magic, like, kind of pseudo celebrities, right? I mean, within the Magic sphere, they are celebrities. They are, you know, they're people that everybody recognizes. They're on all the, you know, Magic advertising. Their pictures are on the main mothership website. They make content all the time, and you know, then you see and you're like, holy crap, that's, you know, Reed Duke, or that's blah blah blah. Like, you see, there's Nassif and there's da da da. That is one cool aspect of going to those things. It's like you kind of, you know, the Magic royalty or whatever you kind of rub elbows with. But
it's that's one aspect that I just absolutely adore. It's also kind of wild to think that in that environment, those folks are massive celebrities. But can you imagine just like being at just a random like business party or something and saying nobody knows. Oh, you don't even know I met Jim Davis this weekend. Like they'd be like, the Garfield guy? Like, no, it's
I mean, you've heard the famous story of Finkel going, you know, he was on a date, famously on a date, and the girl's like, you know, what do you do for a living? Or say, he's like, I'm a Hall of Fame Magic player. Like, I'm probably the most famous player in the world. And she had no idea. And she was like, you're like, get out of here. You're, There's like this anecdote that went around the internet. Oh, this is years ago, but yeah, kind of funny because in Magic circles, people would be like bowing at his feet, like, oh my God, it's Finkel.
Right, of
this
course.
Kind of stuff. Anyway, it's interesting, but the actual games themselves were awesome. Like the World Championship was standard and it was draft, and it was pretty good. I didn't watch a ton of it. I know a lot of us didn't because we were there, but it was really interesting to see like the innovations of the decks and stuff like that. So. Yeah, let's chat about the actual event itself. I think Standard's been much maligned recently. We were talking about this a little bit before we started the podcast. I was saying that I feel like Standard, has had some rough times recently. I mean, Throne of Eldraine was a wild time in Standard, and there were more bannings in 2 years than in the last 20. And that was a problem, and a lot of people got really fed up with the format and kind of were already complaining and whatever. And then COVID hits, and everything's shut down. And Standard being a 2-year format, everything being locked down for 2 years, kind of killed it and all this stuff. Right. Now we're seeing Wizards go, okay, we want Standard to be a thing again. We're gonna, this is for paper players. They're doing this. Let's extend it to 3 years. We want to get paper going, like, 'cause no shops are firing Standard events, right? Since the pandemic, like, it's every story I hear from every LGS, every player is just like, Standard never fires, Standard never, nobody wants to play Standard. And meanwhile, on Arena, I play Standard a lot. There's tons of people who are coming into my channel going, hey, you're the only person streaming Standard. What the hell? Worlds is coming up. Like, it's Standard is the event for Worlds, and like, we're not really, it's some Magic Online events, and HollywoodPizza's got his tournament circuit, but there's not like, the RCQ season was Pioneer, and now it's Modern, and it's eventually, like, the next one will be Standard, and that's what I wanted to talk about. This metagame, what are we going to be expecting for this RCQ season? But Standard's in a weird place, and I know they're pushing for it to come back. Will it come back? I don't know. What do you think, Fabretto?
So, as somebody who also like almost exclusively plays Standard on Arena, the Arena ladder is not always indicative of decks that you see in Magic Online challenges, in Magic Online leagues, and I would even agree with the top 8 of the Standard deck lists from Worlds. It depends if you're playing like best of 1 versus best of 3 on Arena. Typically, your best of 1 ladder is full of aggressive decks, mono red in particular. But it's interesting because a couple weeks before Worlds, we were right here on this podcast talking about here are some decks to watch out for the World Championship, and then we saw the metagame breakdown right before Worlds, and it's like, did we hit this spot on? Because we were talking about these decks, right? And then the top 8 came out, and it's like there's one clear standout deck that lots of folks were talking about, and that was the Golgari mid-range deck, right? So that definitely made a presence on the scene, like, and it's nice to see it, honestly, in my opinion, because green decks really haven't been in the spotlight outside of Ramp.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good to see that, cards like Glissa Sunslayer getting the play that it deserves. The Blossoming Tortoise putting in the work it does with the new creature lands. So, Anthony Lee, who is the player that top 8'd Worlds with that deck, I mean, well deserved. And even got to play some newer cards like in the sideboard, right? I mean, played Ashiok, Wicked Manipulator, was able to play a Rankle's Prank. Like, it's great to see the new Wilds of Eldraine cards being applied to what is this 3-year, extended standard, right? Yeah. Because we would have rotated, and Dominaria United would have been the oldest set in Standard. So it's interesting to see how these Wilds of Eldraine cards pair with the older Standard cards. Some menaces that might cause, but they do work well.
Yeah, the green-black deck is interesting, and this is where, after the fact, when we can look at just the Standard records and separate their limited records, you get a better picture of, like, which decks were the highest performing decks in terms of win rate. I mean, we saw Greg Orange get top 8 with his Bant Control deck, which I still think is not a deck I would recommend anybody take into a tournament. That was a very specific metagame deck, and, he had a very good limited record getting him into that top 8, but there were some weird decks that, squeaked in. Even Golgari midrange, I think a lot of the pros and a lot of the talk after the deck lists were in was people saying midrange can't beat ramp. They struggle so hard against ramp. Some people said during testing they were splashing blue, making it Sultai to just get some D-strokes and make disappears and whatever negate. because it's a bad matchup. And sure enough, like I think Ramp had a great win rate and everything. The win rate, looking at just standard, Golgari and some of the newer decks like Mono Red, everybody was like, oh, the charmed dude, the charmed
Scoundrel.
what is he called? Scoundrel. Is going to be great. Put Mono Red on the map. Yeah, it's a great 2-drop, but it's still not good enough. And especially with Shouldered everywhere, now we've got even another green-black deck here playing Shouldereds and stuff. It's like, yeah, we saw Red put up pretty bad numbers, aggro in general. Of course, Simon Nielsen's probably the best aggro player on the planet right now, and he gets top 8. But even his list, that Blue-White Soldiers deck that he made it top 8 with, it's really interesting because it is not a Soldiers deck. I want to call it Blue-White Convoke. I mean, he's got soldiers on here, and there are a couple soldiers in there, but there's so many. Even things like Lunark Veteran, a 1-drop non-soldier 1-drop, like with 1 power, like it's so weird. But you can see the testing that he did with this deck, and basically went, yeah, like this is a better, more resilient way to combat a lot of the other decks out there. And so it was really cool to see some of these, not even brews, but like blue-black. Everybody, like, and you as well, Favretto, you've been on blue-black for a long time, right?
Yep.
And it was the best deck in Standard, arguably, for a couple weeks there. But then as we get to Worlds, it evolves, and they basically go, how do you beat the mirror? Well, you got to touch white, because Wedding Announcement is so damn good in that matchup. And, you get access to other white cards. Rafine, obviously, still one of the best cards in Standard. Denick, being a random graveyard hoser, is huge in that deck, too, because a lot of these decks with, like, Cauldron, and people were trying all stuff from Eldraine, but they were way too linear and easy to beat. Like just a Denick, 4 Denicks in the main, and your Cauldron can't target, and Virtue of Persistence can't do it. It's like, the passive graveyard hate. So a lot of weird innovations happened. I'm rambling here, but what do you guys think about the weird evolution of some of these decks?
I mean, first of all, Fairy Mastermind, like, sign me up. I'm in love with that card, but in love with that card. But another new card that really I was excited to see play, and Jean-Emmanuel Duprat was playing, was Lord Skitter Sewer King.
Oh yeah,
and that card did some work. Like, we talk about like Rafine being a hard card to kill. Well, guess what doesn't die to cut down and is also a 3-drop, and that answer is Lord Skitter. Just putting out an army of tokens is great. Being able to eat cards out of graveyards is great.
Yeah, the passive graveyard hate. I know, it's crazy.
Just solid stack, solid 3 mana, and no downside. So
yeah. Well, the cut down is the biggest reason. I mean, before the bannings, when Grixis was the best deck, and then people were playing Rakdos, there was Rakdos Reanimator, there's a bunch of goofy nonsense, and then for a couple of weeks, Esper Legends just started crushing. That's how I qualified actually for the Jengathon tournament coming up. It was such a good deck. That curve of Skrelv into Thalia into Rafine was so good. People, the way people combated or fought against that was to pack those cut downs in. When people were playing Adeline, and then you were playing Esper Legends, and you'd play Adeline, and they would cut it down, and you'd trade your 3-mana card for a 1-mana spell. It felt so bad. So people started playing Gix. Gix was the go-to 3-drop. But of course, I mean, cut down good against Rafine, good against Adeline. So what did the deck do? It juked, and they went into, they started playing Gix as a 3-drop. Now, Gix is gone. The Rat Lord is so much better. I mean, it's still legendary. The Army in a Can that you said was so good, and that passive graveyard hate, the Esper Legends deck, and the Esper midrange deck that Kazune played, another awesome list that I want to talk about after this, but the Legends deck that Duprat played had like all the creatures, and Denick and the Rat combined means there's no Shinette cruelty of Gix. The Rakdos Reanimator decks, like Team Handshake, they've been the most winning team, I think, so far this year in terms of Pro Tours. They were all on Rakdos Reanimator, a bunch of them, and the Esper deck just passively hoses that in the main deck, and they don't even have to sideboard any hate cards. Not a good place to be. If I'm a graveyard deck, anyway, I think that even goes over to some of the turtle stuff that's happening with, the green-black deck recurring those creature lands. Just one Denick just stops all that. It's so frustrating to play against. But
and speaking of Kazune's deck, also piloting Esper but mid-range rather than Legends. Another card that seemingly works really good with Lord Skitter is Virtue of Loyalty. Considering you can cast that card at instant speed on turn 2, follow up with Lord Skitter, start making a bunch of 1/1s, and then when you can cast this card for 5, those rats get pretty big.
It's so ridiculous, dude. I've been playing this deck on the ladder the last few days. This Kazune list, I saw it. Out of all the lists in the top 8, I think it's the best. I know John Emil Pro won. He's a very good player and everything,
Yeah.
but Kazune, and he's been on fire. He came in 9th in the last Pro Tour. He should have been in the top 8, but got a draw in the last round, which was
Yeah.
crazy. And anyway, but his list, what you just said is insane. Yeah, the virtues have been awesome, but just the fact that you're playing, forget about Thalia, forget about Skrelv. We're gonna play like this weird. This is the evolution of the blue-black deck. This tempo deck where we get to. It's like blue-black, and we're just touching white for Denick and Rafine to still have that curve, but you get to leave up, make disappear. The one thing that Esper Legends gets crushed by are sweepers. And if you can sweep their board and they fall behind, it's very hard for that deck to come back from behind. They have to keep the momentum going and have to keep kind of snowballing. And Rafine and Denick Lord Skitter, all these cards, the Virtue, they want you to really snowball. And having the make disappears for the Wraths, oh my god, he's got triple D-stroke in the main, and you might think, oh, that's for the ramp decks. It's just to counter Sunfall. Just having every single post-board match when I had a bunch of counter magic, and I had just even Denick and Rafine, that's all you need. And then you sit back on counter magic, and they just can't, no deck can beat you. Rafine's that stupid, right? So yeah, I love this list. I think this is going to be going forward for the RCU season. Esper mid-range or whatever, Esper tempo, I don't know what you're going to call it, is got to be one of the best decks, but there's some notable cards missing here. Like, he's not playing the Fairy. I was even like, really? You're not playing? That card does seem like insane in this deck, but he was like, no, I'm going to max out on Virtues. That's my 2-drop. And I think just maybe it being the adventure on the back is powerful enough that, once you get one of them in play, it's very hard to beat. If you ever have 2, it's GG, like 90% of the time, 95. It's crazy. They need to fare well at that point, right?
Pretty much.
And then Domain Ramp. I mean, this deck's been around since the last Pro Tour. All it picked up were a couple up the beanstalks. That's basically it. I mean, everything else looks exactly like it looked in the last Pro Tour when Grixis was the best deck, and this deck came out, with 4 Angel of Wrath in the main and 4 Invasion, 4 Topiary Stomper, getting up to, 7 mana on turn 5 or whatever, turn 4, and swinging. And here we see it winning with almost no changes. Virtue of Persistence, I'm sorry, is the other big pickup. Yeah, that is a good one. But what do you think
I
of
mean, I
this
like
deck?
that the ramp deck can play the solid game plan of, Topiary Stomper into Invasion into win the game. Like, that's
Right.
their plan, right? So I think before, there was really nothing you could do on 2. I mean, some of the ramp decks that you were fiddling around with before played like Scrap Gorger, right? From Phyrexia Obi-Wan. You could play the Bramble Elemental Raccoon now, if you really want. I'm kind of excited to see that they didn't go that route.
Yeah.
Even though it is less ramp for them, and they figured Courier's Briefcase is the better 2-drop ramp card. Which, if we all remember back to Standard when the Kami War 5-color deck was going around, I mean, Courier's Briefcase, you weren't getting rid of that card. It was making you your blocker, whatever you needed to ramp up to the Kami War. So this serves a similar purpose, right? Except now we have Traxa, which is just 10 times better than the Kami War, right? But, now the inclusion of Up the Beanstalk, just to be a 2-mana draw card, to make sure you're smoothing out your draws, casting, then Leyline Binding the next turn, holding up a 2-drop or something, draw a card. Like, it just gets out of control. No, I'm not salty about last night, playing against Up the Beanstalk, Leyline Binding decks. It's fine. But it is kind of egregious now at this point, because I think, like, everybody understands that this is the way this card works. And so, I mean, and these are great. And then in the sideboard, like Reduke's list was playing some Chrome Host Seed Sharks, and I would even challenge people to play more than one of that card in the sideboard, because that works so well to go like Beanstalk into Seed Shark into multiple Leyline Bindings. Like, GG, I'm getting all of these incubator tokens after the fact.
I mean, I was playing 5-color for a long time. I was messing, as soon as the Mom came out, I was messing with Invasion of Alara and Cemetery Desecrator, and I've been playing that for quite a while now. And flipping it just feels so busted. And I was saying, Courier's Briefcase, I love this card, and they got away from that card. Like, the deck list that made top 8 of the last Standard Pro Tour was not playing Briefcase. Just the Herd Migrations, the Topiary Stompers and everything. And the card advantage from that card in the late game is so good. And the fact that it's so cheap means it's almost impossible to counter. It's like a draw 3 that you can't de-stroke. You can't make it disappear because it's so easy to play around with. It's only 2 mana. And then, the Up the Beanstalk. in my version of the deck, I wasn't playing up the Beanstalk. I was playing more the Invasion of Alara version, but that version is weaker than this version. Like this version that Reed Duke is playing and the rest of their Team Channel Fireball and Reed getting top 8 winning, or sorry, getting top 8 again after winning the last Pro Tour. With this deck, it was such a good choice. They didn't need to change much, and Up the Beanstalk's actually very good in this version. Because I think this version struggles a bit more with the card advantage. I think that's also why you're seeing 2 Couriers Briefcase there. They know Esper Control is a popular deck, and whenever that matchup happens, Esper Control can grind you out of win conditions. They can counter basically and kill every single thing you do. You can Atraxa, they just keep killing your Atraxas. They counter your next one, and then you're like you have a bunch of stuff, Leyline and these kind of things don't do a ton against them, and they kill you with Murex, So it's interesting to see, and Up the Beanstalk was really showcased in Greg Orange's deck. 4 in the main deck. I saw this ban. It's essentially like blue-white control splashing green, right? And I thought, really? Like, you're going to splash a 3rd color for this one card, Up the Beanstalk? But holy crap, when you have multiple Up the Beanstalks, like when you're playing 4 in the main deck, I mean, Ferretta, you've seen 2 in play before, right? It's like, I can't win.
I've seen 4 in play last night.
Okay, but that's where it's danger zone, right? Because I have milled the opponent out when they go too nuts. It's not a May. So having 3 or 4 Beanstalks in play, you better be winning the game in like a couple turns, or like I've seen that this deck
or at least get rid of Shieldred. If you're playing against a black deck with Shieldred in play and you have to draw all of these cards, if they don't cast that Leyline Binding, you're dead.
Yeah. And that's why, Greg playing the lay down arms and stuff, just having all kinds of answers to stuff like Shieldred. It was an interesting deck. Broker's Charm, like I don't think I've seen that seeing played in Standard since it was never.
New Capenna Limited.
Yeah, wild to see. Making top 8. I mean, he did again. This is where it gets weird. The top 8 is these players all crushed their drafts. That's how they got top 8. Like it's almost more. Yeah. Anyway, but really, really interesting to see. And Standard going forward is going to be interesting. I think you're going to see the ramp. The pillars of the format, as I see them, are the Esper mid-range decks, whether it's Legends or Tempo, like we can lump those together. Rafine decks, ramp decks, of course, are not going anywhere. They're going to be a big part of the metagame. I think Esper Control is still going to be a big part of the metagame. I don't know how it missed so hard. I saw some of the lists in the World Championship, and it had a decent win rate, but they were playing Jace in the main deck. I was like, there were some choices, and I'm like, what was this? Were they metagaming for more ramp? Because the Jace is very good against ramp, right? Like milling them out. They, again, with all these Up the Beanstalk, you can mill yourself out with ramp very easily if you're not careful. So I don't know about Esper. Maybe it drops to 1.5, but and then maybe aggro. I think white-based aggro, whether it's blue-white, this blue-white Convoke deck seems very powerful. The one that Simon Nielsen top 8'd with. It looks very good to me. It looks resilient. It looks like a deck I don't want to play against if I'm playing a slower deck, like a ramp deck or a control deck. So I don't know. I think white-based aggro, the Esper decks, and then the ramp decks are top of the heap right now. Do you think green-black is up there? Do you think green-black has the legs? Yeah?
I think you have this interesting mixture of having an extremely playable Golgari deck that can come in 2 different types of forms. But I kind of just want to group them together with like Black X mid-range, because you could legit still play like a Rakdos decks in the format, right? You could play
black.
Grixis, right? Yeah. I mean, black is the most powerful color, in my opinion, that still exists in the Standard format. So, any color pair you want to pair for that, with that, is going to have the same base, the same shell, the same good cards that are making all the Black X decks together. So I sort of group them into one.
So Black X mid-range, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we've definitely seen those decks, because when you have access to Cut Down, Go for the Throat, the End if you want to get spicy, Shieldred, Liliana the Veil is even like fringe, like not necessarily what you want, which is kind of nuts. You have Tenacious Underdog, those kinds of things. Like, we anybody who's played on Arena in the last, year is kind of familiar with more or less what that deck looks like.
And the removal is excellent. I mean, black gets Cut Down, and the whole format kind of revolves around Cut Down. There are cards that literally will come in and out of, like, decks that we'll see play, or, like I was talking about Adeline earlier, and you're just not seeing her, or, Rafine. When everybody's packing 4 Cut Down, I kind of want to leave Rafine at home in a way, but Denix and stuff. But then as people play their 3-mana 3/3s to kind of not be good against Cutdown, then Cutdown drops in terms of play, and that allows Rafine to come back, and it's just like Cutdown tends to warp, and the black removal, Go for the Throat, is still the test that most creatures have to pass. I know the Doomblade test is a meme now, but it's based in truth. I mean, hey, if your 4 or 5 mana card dies to Doomblade, or AKA Go for the Throat, it better do something big on ETB. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth it. So really interesting. The removal's still good. I agree that black is the best color. Shouldered, probably still the best card in Standard, right? It's Shouldered and Rafine. Maybe Atraxa as number 3 or something, but I think the format will revolve around those. I just wonder if those mid-rangey green decks, like Green Black Rock or Sultai decks, can beat ramp. Like they need a way to consistently deal with ramp. I don't think it's a good matchup for them. So it just makes me wonder if they're, if ramp's one of the main pillars of Standard, how good could the black-green mid-range decks get? We'll see. Maybe some new stuff comes out. But speaking of which, or do you want to add any more to the Standard discussion?
No, I mean, sort of just what I wanted to segue into is why does all of this matter, right? Like, why does what happened at the World Championship in the Standard format matter? Considering, Standard is the #1 played format on Arena. I mean, for sure. I mean, without a doubt, Wizards released the data, right? We could see it. But, what we also heard in Vegas over the weekend was the announcement to try to help revitalize Paper Standard, right? And, I mean, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. But in a gist, if you haven't heard what the second announcement is, right? The first announcement was the extension of Standard to be this 3-year rotation that we have now. But the new announcement said 2 important things. Number 1, it said that in February that the Standard Showdown series is going to come back to local game stores. So that means Wizards wants to make sure that local game stores are doing the Standard format, right? Hosting events to revitalize the paper play. Mixed feelings on that. I don't know that that's going to work because Standard Showdown was not popular before. When Standard was highly played in local game stores, at least in my opinion, at least where I live in New Jersey, right? But they also announced that they are going to be doing another Standard Pro Tour, right? Not necessarily the one in Chicago, but one coming up. But also there's going to be at MagicCon Chicago, which will happen in February, that features a Pro Tour. There's going to be a 75K event happening there, much like the 100K limited full format was. Except this is going to be Standard. And we know about the RC season, the Regional Championship season. We knew about that in advance. But there's an important update to this. Because before, stores used to be able to choose either the format, so like how it is Pioneer or Modern or Standard, or they could choose to do Limited. And the announcement does not say that they're allowed to do Limited for the season, meaning it's going to be Standard only for that Regional Championship season. So that'll happen January to March. And that's huge, right? That's because lots of RCQs are happening around to qualify for what will be a Standard Regional Championship. That's great and all. But what I had hoped would happen, because you want as much play to happen as possible for this format, right? I hoped we would have heard an announcement of like a tournament series that was going to focus on Standard. Whether Wizards was going to support it and operate it, which was doubtful anyway. Or they would pay a TO some number of money to be able to run these events. Whether that's Star City Games bringing back like their tournament series like they had before, rather than only one con every like 2 months, which isn't really very highly attended now. I guess it depends what city it's in. I can tell you the one that was in Baltimore during Lord of the Rings pre-release weekend was like not good. In terms of attendance, either for the pre-release or the Command Fest that was there. And that was a Command Fest event. So, like, we need some type of tournament series where we could follow a metagame week to week to week to week. That's when Standard was at its peak and its best, and it's something that doesn't exist now. So hopefully we still get to hear that announcement. Hopefully we get lucky and, like, a TO announces, hey, we're running a Standard tournament series, and here's this missing part of the announcement that wasn't there, and we're going to support and we're going to run. But we do have to remember that these events cost dollars. And so, the days are over of paying like $30 to play in one of those types of tournaments. Like, your entry to play in those tournaments is at least starting at $60. We got to keep lights on. We got to pay judges fair wages.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a big part of it.
It's important. So I'm hoping that we hear an announcement like that in the future.
Me too. I mean, Star City Games those days, and I remember them when they'd have standard and legacy tournaments like back to back, where they'd have all kinds of stuff, and it was every week. I mean, it's weird, but I guess as people buy more and more digital cards, like those kind of events are usually run at a loss, and they're making up the money by selling a ton of cards on the site, right? Dealers and vendors. And when Star City Games is such a massive reseller, that's where a lot of their money is coming back in from. But I think, especially after the pandemic, a lot of people just got used to just ordering their cards online. Like the vendors seemed like we just were in Vegas, and it seemed very busy and everything. But I wonder if that's a dying thing. Like, yeah, if they're not making that much money on that kind of stuff, then they've got to make it up in other ways, and they charge more for tickets or whatever.
Most of the cases, though, the vendors aren't there to necessarily make money from selling cards. Their goal is to buy the cards and then sell them online, because there's no other avenue aside from people shipping their cards to them to sell that they have anymore, because there's no like GPs or anything like this. So a store might bring a lot of money with them to buy their selection, and whether they're putting on TCG Player, their own store's website, or like if they're an LGS that's vending. I mean, that's their goal: just buy as much as possible.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, and that's interesting too, because in looking at the way that those booths were laid out, you could see that. Like they would have, four sides to their little tables, and two of them would be devoted to just buying tables, where people would just sit down and just acquire cards, and the other two were like just display cases with the big money showpieces that they brought for the event. Like,
Some of the vendors,
yeah, if you were just like signed up for a standard event, you were like, "Hey, I just need 4 copies of Cut Down." They may not even have that, like at those booths.
Potentially.
Yeah,
it's just funny. I wonder,
do you need a near mint mana crypt? Like, well, no, I just I need 4 Cut Downs. Yeah.
I mean, places like that are still the places to buy this super, super rare, one-off, crazy crap. Because if anybody opens, like, anybody who got one of those Swords to Plowshares or whatever at the place probably just turned around and sold it to a vendor right away, right? I don't know, maybe not, but they're still going up in price from what I've seen. But anyway, I wonder, in this day and age, like, again, you can sell. Now there are sites where I can just ship my whole collection. They sort it for them. I pay a small fee. Like, that kind of stuff wasn't as prominent back then. I just wonder, what is the missing piece here? Is it maybe they're not able to buy enough collections from people? They're not bringing it in as much as they used to, and that's why they're not making as much money at these things, because they can't resell it? I don't know but it seems like Star City Games literally took a huge step back and went, yeah, we're done with the competitive stuff. Laid off all their competitive writers, content writers, keeping like one maybe. It's mostly casually focused now. Getting rid of the tournament series. It would be interesting. Like, I know they bid for the contract with DreamHack, and DreamHack won that bidding war. Star City Games was in that, trying to get the contract to do the R-Season stuff, and DreamHack outbid them, I guess, or whatever. So it shows they are still interested in that kind of stuff. But I agree with you. I think they should definitely do some kind of regular circuit and keep the momentum going, because it feels like they abandoned Standard for a couple of years, and now they're like, hey, it's Standard again. They did this with Pioneer. They created the format. Everybody's like, ooh, a new format. We jump in, and then they let it languish for like 3 years. Nobody gave a crap about Pioneer. And then when COVID ends, they're like, we're going to start with Pioneer. And everybody's like, Pioneer? Really? Oh, okay, weird.
This is
and it was a
business.
Great format. People love Pioneer until it became the focus of the RC, and then it kind of ruined Pioneer. Like, suddenly the competitive lens. It was mostly a casual format at that point. Nobody was playing Pioneer. It was like online, and people were saying it was a great format because of that. There was all kinds of different decks, and people were doing crazy crap, and it was great. And then it became, they were like, the next Pro Tour is going to be Pioneer. Suddenly, they're doing the same with Standard. Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you. So I went to DreamHack Atlanta last year, right, when it was the first Pioneer Regional Championship. And I only went because one of my friends had qualified. And I was like, I'm going to take the trip with them. Like, go check out what DreamHack is and stuff like this. And there were a bunch of LCQs, or last chance qualifiers, you could play. So many players showed up to the event without the cards for their decks, because they thought they'd be able to show up to the vendors and buy everything they need, because they were used to doing that in the past. And they were very wrong. And this is when the Brothers War first came out, and the Gruul boats or Gruul vehicles was like the deck that just came onto the scene, trying to beat big bad, Rakdos, Shieldred, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Dot Broken deck. And nobody could find new cards. no standard cards from the vendors, right? So nobody could find their obliterating bolts, and nobody could find reckless storm seekers for that deck, the rare from Innistrad, right?
Yeah.
And players are like freaking out. They're like, "What do we do?" And it's like, "Oh, looks like you're gonna have to change decks or do something else because this ain't working for you." Like, and the vendors are like, "We didn't come with standard cards. We came with the collections that we have." So like,
Yeah.
hopefully Magic has sort of returned to normal where that's like not a thing anymore. But
Sure.
the truth is, because of the lack of popularity from standard, vendors aren't carrying standard legal cards that don't matter in other formats. So,
Yeah.
that's sort of this trickle down effect. So if we want to populate standard again, you want vendors to be able to hold the cards for players to buy. There has to be the incentive. And personally, I don't think that their announcement that they gave to focus on the LGS is enough to make vendors want to carry standard cards. So until standard becomes a popular format where you follow it week to week to week to week again, and I want that, okay, you're going to continue to have cards like $80 Shieldreds and $30 to $40 Agatha the Soul Cauldron, because players only want a couple cards from the standard set that are playable in other formats that are more reliable and that have more events for them in paper.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, when that happens, what you described is because they let the format languish for so long that suddenly they announce a big tournament. And what you said is true. The vendors don't have, like, a lot of people just don't have those cards in their collections. The vendors don't even bother bringing them. And we're seeing that with Standard now, where suddenly they're pushing Standard when people haven't given a crap about Standard for a long time. And I think it's going to take a while to get to the point where we care again. But it will get there. I think what you're describing, the tournaments and stores being able to and having more standard staples and all this stuff, it will eventually get to that point again, but it's going to take a while. I think the first few events and the first few big with standard are not going to be, the first few weeks these stores are going standard showdown, everybody's going to be like pass. But then after a while, after people get back into standard, I think it's actually going to take until the end of next year when the rotation does finally happen. And then there's a fresh standard. That's when a lot of players jump into standard. When rotation happens, I don't have to buy $80 Shouldreds. I'm done. And then they jump back in. Yeah.
What was so interesting is I was talking about with my friend Kevin, who also came to Vegas, that I'm sure you guys got to meet. Yeah. So he runs the comic book store, right? And we always talk about what we think needs to happen to make these formats come back. And before the announcement was made, so literally on our plane ride to Vegas on the Wednesday, he said, you know what? If Wizards wants to repopulate the format, they have to bring something back to the store and they have to give away like Mana Crypt. Like start printing serialized Mana Crypts. And people will show up to your tournament to play for a card that's going to be worth a couple $100 or $1,000 because it's serialized. And Wizards needs to set up a system to where they can track what stores have what serialized numbers. So stores aren't just taking the product and selling it online rather than hosting the tournaments. Like keep them honest. And that's how you do it. And then we're at MagicCon and they announced that in Ixalan, they're reprinting Mana Crypt on the bonus sheet in 7 treatments. So now that idea is out of focus. Right? Because there's no need to print serialized Mana Crypts when I can get neon Mana Crypts in Caverns of Ixalan. And we'll get to that, I'm sure. But so what are the standard showdown cards going to be? Because I could tell you one thing. Like, if you're telling me I can open up like a Shieldra that's going to be worth $150, like, yeah, give it to me. That's worth it. If you tell me you're going to give me a special foil Restless Spire, I don't want it. Because I can open up this up out of a $3. It is. I agree.
That's a nice
cool.
That's a nice one.
And that's a nice playable card, but it's not a big money card that's going to move.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not showing up for Standard Showdown for that.
Yeah. No, if I showed to an event that I was going to go to anyway and somebody handed me that, okay, cool, thanks. But like, I'm not getting in my car and putting pants on for that. Yeah.
It shows you where their priorities lie. Do they want
100%.
to actually benefit the shops and keep them, give them some incentive to kind of, here's some fancy money, expensive stuff to give out? Or do they want to sell more packs? I mean, they make more money off selling more and more and more and more and more booster packs. And that's why they would put it in a pack as opposed to giving it to a store. I wish it wasn't that way. You're right. I would love to see them. They can literally print money. They are printing money. They can just print, hey, here's a 1-of-1 ring, $2 million. Like, if I could print a $2 million bill, that's what they just did.
But that's only going to last for so long. And I think that brings
Right.
brings the point of why getting paper standard to be valuable again is important. Because right now, the money cards that move the needle are cards that are playable in Commander. There are a ton of phenomenal standard cards that are truly excellent that are worth bubkiss because they are only good in standard. You know, and like that's where they shine. And the reality is people just don't care about paper standard. And I can say this from a point of experience because over the last 5 years I've been playing an absolute crap ton of standard. I have played thousands of hours of standard over the last 5 years. You know why I keep saying 5 years? Because that's when Arena came out. I have never once shuffled up a paper standard deck. Not once. And I've played literally thousands of hours of standard. MTG Arena has breathed new life into that format in a way that has made it engaging and interesting and fun for a whole audience of people who were never going to spend even $200 on a deck that has an expiration date. But
It's
sorry. But no, so I'm just saying, like, there are tons of people like me who were not part of standards, paper past, who maybe thought it was interesting but never took the dive themselves, who have had an opportunity to get into it through Arena, either through free to play or, I mean, I'm certainly not a free to play player on Arena by any means, but the amount that I've spent on Arena over the last 5 years is far less than I would have to keep up with paper. I'm quite confident of that.
Not close.
Yeah, right. But now I'm at a point where like we have this 75K coming up, and Carlo, to your point, if there was some kind of recurring series, holy crap, my interest would go from like very much peaked to like over the needle. I don't know. Let's figure it out because I'm in. And I want to get into paper standard now. That was never the case before. For me personally. And I have a feeling there are plenty of other people out there who have gotten into standard through Arena who would love to take the plunge and make the move. And I don't know, Wizards just needs to give us a reason. And I feel like they're trying, but it could have been more. And it could have been more tantalizing. Yeah.
Listen, there is a thing that used to exist in Magic. I mean, we're talking pre-pandemic, right?
Sure.
But that always enticed me. And this is like, I've played Magic since 8th edition. I have like stopped playing the game for like a year or two at a time because of like school and stuff. Come back. But what pulled me back in was being able to travel to tournaments and use my excuse to travel as a vacation to go play a Magic tournament.
Heck
right? Like I could stop work on like Thursday at a certain time, catch a red-eye flight, go to a city, go play the Star City tourney in a group where like 6 guys were like hoarding up in one hotel room just to play test Magic and play the tournament and get on the plane and go back home, or take like that 6-hour road trip to go to like Star City Games Baltimore or GP Cleveland or something like this. And it's like, we can't do that's what's missing from Magic right now. There is nothing like that going on. And whether it's standard or any other competitive series, in my opinion, that stuff has to come back. Like MagicCon's great and all. I love going to MagicCon. I'm thankful for, being able to be like a creator at MagicCon and stuff. I want to be able to take those trips on weekends to go play Magic tournaments. And right now that doesn't exist. And I think a good part of your population wants that to come back. And if they brought back a tournament series, whether it's Star City or GPs or whatever again, you would still have a lot of people going to those events as sort of mini MagicCons. People would go to them, in my opinion. And especially if we had things to play for. Like if we're going to popularize and promote series like the Pro Tour and Worlds, get that thought in the mind of people that they can go qualify for those events via paper events that are more than just the regional championships. Because I think that's what a lot of players want.
I mean, Standard was the vehicle that not only sold Magic, it was the Pro Tour was how they sold Magic cards. Standard was the format, how they sold new sets for years and decades for most of Magic's existence. That's only changed recently. And it's weird because that's what elevated Magic beyond the status of a normal game. There's a reason ESPN televised Magic when I first started playing Magic, and they stopped, because they quickly realized nobody could follow what's going on. It's not like poker or something.
Right.
But at the same time, that level of competitiveness and that big money circuit is what made it elevated, and it was like poker. It was like serious games. Like you would make people make a living doing this. I remember thinking the same thing, dude. I mean, you're lucky you lived in the States and you could do that. Most other countries, even in Canada where I grew up, I couldn't go to. I would have to fly to a new country. It's a whole, and most other countries they're lucky to get any big tournaments or whatever, but. Watching the Pro Tour is what I always said. Yeah, if I win the lottery, if I don't have to, do anything for a living, this is what I would do. I would just love to travel around to Magic tournaments. That would be awesome. That was like my dream for a while. And yeah, I think a lot of us share that dream. It would be cool to see that level of, standard and stuff come back. But it's a different age, right? Like Ham said, Arena in a way cannibalized their format, like standard. And it's, yeah.
Well, and to a point, but I think the flip side of that is Arena is an onboarding method potentially.
Yes.
There are plenty of folks who did not play Standard before who are now fully invested in Standard, like myself. Yeah. I may be an anomaly. I'm not saying that I represent millions of people in Wizards Get Your Act Together because you'll take all our money. I'm not saying that. That's kind of the idealized dream. But I'm sure there are... I'm sure there are a couple of hundreds, if not thousands, of people like me who were not engaged in Standard before, who, if presented with a tournament circuit that we could dive into, would gladly do so now when we wouldn't have before. I
think they need to put up a barrier between Arena. They should never have competitive events on Arena. They did that over the pandemic because they had no choice, sure, but we should never ever see another high-level Mythic Championship. That is what encourages people to go out and play Paper. Here's Arena, learn the game, practice a little bit. Competition even on Arena is pretty weak. If you're serious about testing, get off Arena, go to Magic Online, go some real tournaments or whatever. Or there's still company face to face in Canada. There's Apex Gaming. There's some companies now cropping up that are doing tournament circuits in the States, but it's very localized. It's like just in Ohio or whatever, like some random area. And but I think they need to get players to realize Arena is your training wheels to play. If that's all you want and you just want to goof around, then that's great. Just keep playing Arena. But like you said, Ham, at some point the players go, wait a minute, I'm hitting a ceiling here with how competitive I can get on Arena. I can get some extra rewards if I get Mythic, but more importantly, I can, become a Pro Tour champ if I actually go to my local store and go to that RCQ and play Standard this month or whatever, right? Yeah, that would be good for them to do that. I hope because they got to push people to actually take that step to get off Arena and buy a real, deck, and that's a big step, right? Especially when it's expensive. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I'm hopeful for Standard. I think it's going to be it's going to be worse before it gets better. Like for the next year, it's not going to be great. I know, everybody knows, but this is almost them going, yeah, we're going to take this hit so that after that next rotation, okay, a nice clean 3-year slate. Here we go. The stores are going to be firing their events because we've been pushing it for the last year. I think at the end of next year, that's when I think Standard will eventually be hopefully in a good place. Not even talking about the sets that are coming out. Hopefully they're balanced. Hopefully, all that stuff. But just in terms of the format itself, yeah, we'll see. I think end of maybe 2024, but
yeah.
Anyway,
and I think that segues us right into talking about some new sets that are coming out.
What's coming?
Yeah, we do have some new stuff coming, and so naturally, with MagicCon Vegas being a big production and big celebration of the game, trying to cover all the bases, of which there are a lot, because Magic is a lot of different things to different people. Naturally, they did a preview panel where they showed off a bunch of new cards. And yeah, a lot of them from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And interestingly enough, we have the Lost Caverns of Ixalan set. They also announced that there's going to be a couple of bonus sheets that will be included in the same pack, which is kind of interesting. We have I believe they call them special guests, of which we've seen one, which is an interesting reprint. Then we also have, there's a series of artifacts apparently,
treasure troves,
which is where the neon fancy mana crypt comes in. It's the one card we've seen so far. And then we also have a Jurassic Park themed crossover kind of event. There'll be
Universes Beyond.
Yeah,
we're going beyond, baby.
All right, what do you guys think? Ian
so
Malcolm
do we want to take a look?
Spoiled.
Yeah, do we want to take a look at the actual set cards first?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, sure.
Let's do
wanna
that.
jump
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I want to talk about the Jeff Goldblum
yeah.
card too, of course.
So a big thing here, the very first card I see spoiled is an adventure card. Human Fairy Scout Kellen Daring Traveler.
Indeed.
Ellen's back.
in my Ixalan? What?
Yep. Adventures in Ixalan, and beyond that, we have the protagonist from the last standard set, who is not a planeswalker, now appearing in the new set, which is on a different plane. Well, the Omen paths being open to connect all the different planes makes that logistically possible.
Yes.
I am kind of amazed, given how deep their roster is, that they are immediately going back to the same dude. That seems a little odd to me, but hey, rock on.
Who would have thought
yeah.
Kellen walking through an Omen path was going to take them right into the next set?
Immediately.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, when we looked at that preview panel for like the next couple years of Magic coming up, we did see an image for Thunder Junction that definitely showed an Oko in a cowboy hat. And if you think about it, we know that Kellen in the story is Oko's son.
Yep.
So now Kellen is going through Omen Pass looking for Papa, and somehow we've ended up on Ixalan.
Actually, I wonder, is he just going to show up is he just going to be in every set and just be like the one adventure in all of them until
He keeps taking
I would bet.
reunited with...
Yeah.
Well, but okay.
Interesting.
But the card itself, so Kellen, Daring Adventurer. It has the adventure Journey On, which is a sorcery for 1 green. Now, he was Boros in the last set. He's Selesnya in this one. So Journey On. Create X map tokens, where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. Okay, there's a lot going on in that I just need to touch on real quick. One, we have no idea what map tokens are yet.
No clue.
But now we have clues, treasure, food, and now maps. And blood, and what I mean, there are others I'm missing. I know. Anyway, so random just stuff seems to be the case. I'm assuming maps are going to be an artifact, but even that we don't know yet. Yeah. And then where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. Tell me you are designed for Commander without being designed for Commander.
I was gonna say, yeah. I think this is a Commander card. I mean, I don't know what map code tokens do, but 1 mana for 2 tokens, assuming your opponent controls an artifact in a 60-card one-on-one format. That's 2 pieces of cardboard for 1 mana. So I don't know. I don't know what the map tokens do, but if they're good or relevant in any way, then this thing's making 2 pieces of cardboard in a 60-card format. That's again assuming your opponent has an artifact. I don't know how relevant that's going to be. But,
Yeah, if artifacts are relevant in the meta, if you want maps, this gives them to you. Yeah.
And the colors are right. White-green does a lot of shenanigans with tokens. I mean, we have look at Mondrak. Look at cards that produce literally infinite tokens. We have lots. So I don't know. Maybe there's a token thing that again, I'm thinking just for standard. I'm going to let you guys tell me what's up in Commander. If this is a good Commander card, it doesn't look good to me. But for constructed, 2 mana, 2/3, solid. 1 mana adventure.
Yep.
Those are low mana costs. Low mana costs are always going to have to be taken seriously because they're going to be playable in every deck, right? That can cast them.
Absolutely.
So when he attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it in your hand. Whenever he attacks, otherwise put it in your graveyard. That's very powerful. Not going to the bottom of your deck, going to your graveyard instead is very good. Obviously, if you're doing reanimation shenanigans or even just milling a Dread Knight, I guess would go to your hand. Yeah, but I'm wondering what other value you can get by milling and then also. Creature lands. If you're playing this in a deck with Turtle or something, getting stuff like that back is pretty good.
Absolutely.
But is a 2/3 strong enough to be able to attack and not suicide attack every time? I don't know. That's the tricky part with this card. But
I mean, anyway. If you're playing it in Standard, I will go ahead and just say the thing that I know. I saw you out there starting to boot up the comment section. It does die to cut down. We know it does. That is a thing. But at the end of the day,
Standard.
I know, right? It's but a 2/3 for 2 that can make sure that you don't, or at least you get a quasi like surveil every time it attacks. I mean, that seems pretty good to me. Additionally, we have cards like Ishin in the format that care about attack triggers. Like, I don't know, there might be something fun there. I don't know. This can also pull up your Adelines, your Thalias, all those cards into your hand, which, I mean, we know those are very playable and pretty strong. So this is one of those threats where, like, yes, it does die to cut down, but if your opponent has a cut down, they're going to have to spend it on this guy. Otherwise, the value you can get is pretty real. So, I don't know.
Yeah, white beatdown is a good strategy in Standard. White aggressive decks already have a good core, good base. So,
He could easily be a part of it. I think the real question is how much value are you going to get off Journey on, and that has yet to be seen because we just don't know enough about it. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
What else do we have here?
Yeah, we got a lot. So I did mention, the other one from the main set, we have another legend that they previewed in Breaches, Eager Pillager. It's a goblin pirate. Who doesn't love goblin pirates? And I know, right? I especially love Ixalan goblins because they kind of look like monkeys. There's something about that.
They look weird, yeah.
I know. Can't help but love them. So it's a 3/3 for 2 into red, goblin pirate with first strike. And then text that says, whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Create a treasure token. Target creature can't block this turn. Or exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn.
Love it.
Ragavan at home. Yeah,
I'm right there with you. I love this card. I think this card is nothing short of savage. I love it for a number of reasons. I mean, a 3/3 first strike for 3. First strike is one of the most underrated keywords. It's so good.
Yeah.
So I love that. Also, print more red first strikers. I think that's something that I'm always happy to see more red first strike. I don't love seeing it on the opposite side of the table, but I love having it. It's great. And then this attack trigger that fires whenever a pirate you control attacks. Breaches does not have to be part of that attack.
Nope.
If you have like a 1 or 2 drop pirate down and then you play Breaches and that pirate swings, you get the trigger. So that feels pretty good.
You mean to tell me this can ramp me to a 5-drop on turn 4?
Sure can. Yeah.
All right, sign me up.
That seems pretty good. Well, and then on top of that, if you have multiple pirates, you could get all 3 of these in a turn. And so the other thing that I absolutely adore about this is a clear plant that pirate typal is going to be a thing in this set.
God.
Which it was in the previous Ixalan, and they weren't great. So hopefully this time around, we're going to get some pirates that can, that can really make it happen. So I'm eager to see, if there's a pirate deck, I think Breaches is going to be a good piece of it. Yeah.
And Pirates is one of the commander decks that's coming out with this set too. Versus Pirates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, if you've got a bunch of pirates attacking, this is very powerful. But even just on its face, 3 mana, 3/3 first strike is good stats, and then being not able to be blocked essentially is pretty huge there. I mean, you can they have a shoulder, they have one of the other kind of creatures that would normally stabilize them. Nope, I swing into your Denic and Rafine and whatever else, and your Rafine can't block or whatever. That's actually pretty powerful. I don't know. Like, whenever I see a red aggressive card, I think mono red. Does this fit into mono red? And I think 3 mana is a lot. That's the higher half of the curve. Like, it peaks at 2, and then 3 and 4. You can't play too many 3 and 4 drops. So, is this better than Stormseeker? Debatable. Is this better than Squee or something like that, or even the new guy?
And then Godric, the new one. Yeah,
Godric is very good. I don't know if this is better. I think Haste, turn into a 4/4 flyer is probably better, But again, what you said, I think in Pirates, if Pirates is a tribe, is a tribe in this format, then we'll see. I think you're absolutely right. This is the kind of card that would put it over the top for sure.
Yeah, and the current mono red deck probably doesn't want this. But if there are pirates that can supplant the other 1 and 2 drops that the mono red deck has right now, or at least be contenders for those spots, we might see a mono red pirates deck show up. Or maybe there's a Grixis Pirates or a Rakdos Pirates list that's a little more mid-rangey and maybe has some more control elements. Who knows? I mean, big old fingers crossed that we see like a reprint of Hostage Taker or something like that in this set.
That'd be sweet.
Guys,
cut down.
Okay, fair, but but then
this guy doesn't know how to cut down. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe some kind of Grixis pirate thing might be viable. I don't know. I mean, I'm intrigued by the possibilities, but I like this guy.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. So we got a couple others. I don't want to touch on necessarily every single card that was previewed, although I mean I know we could, and it would be awesome. Let's see. Next up, actually this one I do want to talk about a little bit because this is another red card. This is Ogier Oxenel, Deepest Might. This is the god. It was one of the first artworks that they printed. This is the T-Rex handed individual that we saw previously. It is a 4/4 legendary god for 2 red with trample. If a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than Ogier Oxenel's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to Ogier Oxenel's power instead. When Ogier Oxenel dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed under Storm's control. And the backside is a land called Temple of Power. which is it's a land that taps for red, or you could pay 2 in a red, tap, transform it, activate only if red sources you control dealt 4 or more non-combat damage this turn, and only as a sorcery. And then it would flip back into Ojir Oxino.
Now, what's super interesting about this card, aside from its ability that turns Play with Fire into 4 damage spell for 1 red, is when it flips into the land side, it's not legendary anymore. So you can have multiple Temple of Power saved up on your side of the battlefield for either mana ramp or to pay to flip 1 back into the creature side, which is super interesting.
Sweet. I didn't notice that. That's a good call. Yeah, it's not legendary on the backside. That's super weird. I mean, obviously, that's what they want you to try and go for, because that's always the issue with these kind of cards, of course, is the legendary, you get stuck with them in your hand or whatever. But yeah, him transforming into a non-legendary land kind of fixes that. Yeah, the shock thing is good. I mean, so let's imagine the game. That's what I'm always trying to do. Like, okay, so I play this in, okay, Ronald Red, turn 4. They go Mountain, Slam Ojir or whatever, Axonil. And then you go for the throat. They immediately ramp to 5, play a land 6, and now they can double spell or do a bunch of stuff. We have, what flips it back is what I want to know. Stoke the Flames is legal in Standard. That's a big one. What else does 4 damage in 1 shot? We have Obliterating Bolt, but that doesn't go to the face. What else? Lithomantic Barrage, we have Nahiri's Warbinding. None of that goes to the face. It's got to be 4 non-combat damage dealt to a player, right?
Oh, no, just any non-combat damage.
Oh, so all those things I just named are good. Okay,
those do the job.
That's huge. Okay, yeah. Nice.
Well,
Okay, I thought it was the player.
Additionally, we're in an environment where cards like Thermal Alchemist are still here, which don't really have a home in the current red deck because the current red deck is much more aggressive. That said, though, like I don't know, I like the idea of a build around for this, but definitely more for Commander. I can't imagine this getting work done in Standard because we already have cards like the Red Defiler. Whose name I can't even remember, the Defiler of, I don't know, Fury, I'm guessing.
Seeing play.
It sees like 0 play, and we also have Urabrask, which, you know, the Urabrask from March of the Machine, which is a 4-mana red bomb that cares about the number of spells you've cast, and it even gives you mana to help you chain off, which reads very much like a burn kind of enabler to me, too. But the problem is those burn decks don't want a 4-mana enabler. You know, you want to have already done the thing by the time you get to that point.
Yeah,
you know, and so by the time you're playing this guy out, your hand's probably gone. And so it'll be tough to build around him. I like the idea very much, and I think in Commander people are gonna have a lot of fun with this. But
maybe.
Yeah.
I want to call out the alternate printing. That is badass. I think that art is awesome. On the front side of the full art, what do they call? I don't know what this treatment is called.
Showcase.
That's a terrifying showcase.
Yeah,
that's a terrifying god. That does not look. That looks like a black-red god, not a red.
Yeah, you don't
god.
mess with this guy.
Yeah, Ghost Rider. Looks awesome.
Well, then also even the backside, the Temple of Power, it just has I don't know. There's a majesty to that image that I really enjoy. Yeah,
ominous.
No, you're right. No, that showcase is gorgeous. Yeah, cool stuff.
Anyway,
but yeah,
what else do we have here?
Fun, probably not going to be competitive, but fun. Speaking of fun and may not be competitive, there's one that I definitely want to talk about because I think it might have a shot. Definitely if the kind of deck that I enjoy playing is going to be competitively viable, this card has the potential to be a part of it. And that is Galta Stampede Tyrant. I know Carla knows what's up when it comes to dinosaurs. All right. So Galta Stampede Tyrant is naturally a 12/12 with trample because that's just that's what you got to do when you're doing Galta. For 5 greens, total of 8. With trample, when Galta Stampede Tyrant enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So just last March of the Ents, just on an ETB. So I could reanimate this and then take all the other reanimation targets that I have stranded in my hand and just vomit them onto the field.
No way, you don't say.
I know. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know.
There's no way I could discard this card in Standard and on turn 4 reanimate it and dump the rest of my hand. No way.
It cannot be done. Clearly, we don't have things like we don't have things like Bitter Reunion or the Collector's Vault. No, of course not. Who would do such a thing?
No way. I don't have that card.
No, impossible.
It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, obviously you're just putting all the things. Is there a way to give all your creatures haste and kill them in one shot, though? Because again, you can dump your hand, but if they untap in Sunfall, that's also on turn 5, and you're gonna cry. You're gonna.
If
cry.
one of those creatures is a Tuk Rubble Fort, you're good to go, baby.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Do we have something like that? Can you?
Or
pitch
let me
anger?
introduce
Can
you to Ham's friend Bitter Reunion, which
love
says
Bitter
you can pay
Reunion.
1, pop it, and get
Oh,
all
that's
your
true.
creatures haste.
Okay, that's right. There's a way to do it.
It can be done.
So, but
Yep.
what other fatties are we cheating in here? Because are you just gonna play like literal Atraxa in your like green-red Reanimator deck or green-red?
Tyrannic
100%.
Flex, of course.
Yeah, Atali,
Tyrannic Flex,
Atraxa,
Atali. Let me play all the spells for free.
or
what's the
Galton
shell
Maverick,
here?
because why not? Like, you just, yeah.
Is it a green ramp deck? Is it a 5-color domain shell? What are you doing this in? It says any creature cards, not permanents. Okay, so you can't slam ley lines and all kinds of nonsense. It's just got to be big fat dorks. Let me see.
Let me introduce you to my
yeah.
friend Ruby from Wilds of Eldraine.
Ruby, okay.
That's
So it's red green.
or green.
Yeah, it's a red green
we
ramp
have
deck?
Bitter Reunion. We have Charming Scoundrel. We have Invasion of
Ooh.
Zendikar. We have Topiary Stomper, another dino.
Yep.
Like,
And you gotta have a bunch of fatties as well. So.
And then tons of fatties. And when it comes to removal, you can even use things like the Werefox Bodyguard. Yeah, I don't know.
How are you discarding? You're only using Bitter Reunion discard? What if you're Jund and you get to play Liliana or something? I feel like you need a consistent, like, or I don't know. Or what did you say? Collector's Vault or something? Maybe?
Yeah, Collector's
Vault.
Vault is a good one. There's
Okay,
also
Charming Scoundrel loots, right?
Charming
Romulus.
Scoundrel can
That's the way to
loot
do
or
it.
give you the treasure. You also have
Yeah,
Scrapwork Mutt, which is not amazing, but it can get the job done in a pinch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. We'll see.
We'll see.
I'm
gonna
guess
try
if you
it.
can give them all haste. If you can give them all haste, I'm on board because
Yeah.
now it feels like a combo deck, and if you can just win that turn, great. Because just making a bunch of dudes and in a format where we have some of the top decks playing Wraths on 5, you got to play around that. If you can't give your guys haste, if you're tapping out to do this and you can't also pay that red mana to give haste, you might be trouble. But
I will
that's
tell you
interesting.
that fight rigging still exists in Standard.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's still, people still try and make it good. It hasn't been good, I think. Well, there was times when I thought it was so close. It was so close, but it's never gotten there. It's just too inconsistent. It's so inconsistent, especially the Hideaway. It's like Itali. Atraxa is consistent. You get to pick and choose top 10. Itali whiffs a lot. I mean, even
Sure
Breach
does.
the Multiverse whiffs. I've seen both those cards, the dice rolling cards, right? So we'll see. We'll see. I would like to see fight rigging be relevant someday, but Galta might get it there. Yeah, you never know.
It's a fun idea. It's another gigantic dumb thing.
Yeah.
It's just another gigantic dumb creature. This Standard did not need any more gigantic dumb creatures, but
Yeah,
Here we are.
Tyrannix Rex. At least it's counterable.
dude.
At least it's excuse my language. It's counterable because that Tyrannix has stomped me so many times, and I'm just like, God,
yeah.
I go for throats and
I apologize.
It's
I
you,
understand the
Freddo,
passion. I
know.
get it. You're fine. No judgment here.
Yeah, we already have enough giant dinos slamming me in the face. At least this one doesn't have haste and is counterable, so we'll see.
Indeed. Indeed.
It
Well-
does a lot. Yeah.
So another card that cares about big dumb green things that I'd love to talk about is the Skullspore Nexus.
Yeah.
This thing is just the weirdest design, and it is either going to be a deck that makes green viable in Standard again. Like this card is either single-handedly going to put green back on the map, or be a commander card that fades into obscurity, and I'm not sure which it is yet. So this one is a legendary artifact for 6 green. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with base power and dominance each equal to the total power of those creatures. Then you can pay 2 tap, double target creature's power until end of turn. Where are we on this one?
Favretto, I defer to you. You're the green lord.
So this is either going to be a significantly worse The Great Henge, or it's going to be a ridiculous card. And thankfully it's legendary.
Yeah.
You figure if it costs X less to cast, let's just say we're playing this in a green fatty creature spell deck. And so I have Topiary Stomper I play on 3. So then this card costs me 4. So I can immediately play it the next turn, right? With no immediate effect as it enters the battlefield.
Yep.
Right? It only cares if my creatures die. Typically in the green rampy decks, the creatures die frequently, right? They just lose to removal. There's no real good cards. I mean, thankfully we have cards like Tamiyo Safekeeping and the new Hexproof spell for 1 green that we can play. But the creatures don't have trample. It just doubles the creature's power until end of turn. So I can make you kill my Topiary Stomper, and then what do I get? I get a green fungus dinosaur with base power and toughness equal to the total power of those creatures. So I get a 4/4.
Yep.
That can actually attack and block.
That can attack or block.
Yeah.
Yep.
That I can vigilance. So it's
thankfully not at sorcery speed. I can pay 2 and double a creature's power, which is good.
Right.
If you happen to kill my Tyrannix Rex, I get a replacement 8/8. So it always will replace all of my cards you kill. So it solves the problem of the green creature deck dying to removal. So if you think about it from that base, does that make the card playable? I think yes, right? You're obviously not jamming 4 of this card in the deck, so there's probably like 2 of this card randomly in your deck. That might be a dead draw a good amount of the time. The good thing about drawing the Great Henge is it never really was a dead draw because you would have an artifact that gains you 2 life just for tapping. So,
and I mean,
we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think so let's just the first thing I thought was Great Henge as well. That's where I went, and it's the natural kind of comparison. And Great Henge, this ain't, this is not even close. Yeah. But like I'm trying to think of the cards in Standard. Back when Great Henge was great, we had 3 mana 5/5s. We had like not Questing Beast, the other guy, Lovestruck Beast. What is the biggest? What is the fastest way we can cheat? Is there some giant creature with Defender or something that's really cheap? I'm trying to think of something in Standard that can, is way undercosted but has some weird drawback. Maybe you're ramping into this because
Best one I can think about was Shakedown Heavy, 6/4 for 3.
Okay, Shakedown
so that's
Heavy.
Something,
now we're talking. So
but,
3 Shakedown into untap. And then that costs.
And then this costs 2, and you'd be able to activate it that same turn.
You could
Problem is,
and land activate, make your shake heavy 12, but then they just tap your.
But they draw a card. Yeah, and so the drawback kind of negates the value there. Yeah.
But if they kill your Shakedown Heavy, you get another token that's a 7/6 with no drawback.
That's true. Right. So
and actually, if they kill if you have
total power 7/7.
Yeah, it'd be it's the Shakedown's a 6.
6/4. So 6/4, right? You get.
So if they go to kill your Shakedown Heavy, you could activate the Skullport Nexus or the Skullport Nexus in response, and the token that you get would be a 12/12.
Facts.
With no restriction.
This is weird. So
it's a dream scenario, but I don't know. It's kind of a fun thought. Yeah.
So it is great against sweepers. If it's a destroy sweeper, this actually makes a token equal to the combined power and toughness of those creatures. That is a large, like if they kill multiple creatures in one shot, like with a Wrath. However, my one concern with this, and again, as somebody who loves to play sweepers, the sweepers we have right now that see a lot of play in Standard do not destroy, they exile. And Sunfall exiling means this is I just even the token, like you're not going to get those tokens if they wrath your board. And that's when you said green does get wrecked by removal. You're right, but it's really the sweepers that get you. The spot removal, they run out, and you have more creatures than they have removal. It's when they 3-for-1 you or 4-for-1 you or whatever with a sweeper. And these days, I mean, Sunfall's the sweeper of choice, so I don't know if this is going to be. I just don't see it in Standard. But
and even a lot of the targeted removal we have right now. Is exile or gets around this in one way or another. Like even Virtue of Persistence, for example, it is a power and toughness reduction. And so as a result, like if you have a 3/3 that gets hit by that, gets -3/-3, the Skullsport Nexus sees a 0/0 die. And therefore will create a 0 power, 0 toughness dinosaur.
Leyline Binding's another one, like Lay Down Arms. There's a lot of good removal that a lot of decks are playing. Go for the Throat's still the best. Go for Throat, cut down, sure. But when your opponent has Go for the Throat and you play this, they're just not going to kill your guy, or they're going to find a way to maybe not get you that value. It's people aren't just going to let you have a giant thing or whatever. Nobody's wrathing your board with a, Day of Judgment type wrath if you have this in play, right? If they can read.
Well, and so to go back to our scenario where, like, all right, turn 3, I play Shakedown Heavy. All right, cool. Pass. All right, our opponent does whatever. They leave mana open. All right, I'm going to go back to my turn. Cool. Play my 4th land. Tap 2, play Skullsport Nexus. All right, in response, I go for the Throw Your Shakedown Heavy. Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's like,
it's tricky.
I'm still
it's like
with nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, fight rigging, same thing. When you have a card, an engine piece that requires your creatures to be in play and then also to die, that's two hoops you have to jump through that get tricky, especially the dying part. If it was leave the battlefield, I would be way higher on this card.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
if it's actual die, like they have to go to the graveyard, right now in Standard, it's a weird time. Like we have all this exile removal. I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's more of a commander card to me,
Yeah.
but we'll
It's,
see.
it's a cool design, and I like it a lot more in situations where you're sacrificing your own things with like fling
Yeah,
effects.
there you go.
Or like Tenacious Underdog, where it blitzes back and then dies. You know, like blitz cards actually with this can become very interesting.
Or fling.
So-
I mean, if you're going to play a shakedown heavy, just fling it at them. Get another token, a 6/6,
Yeah.
and fling that. Hell, is there? There is a red dude.
You mean I found another deck I can play my Bloodseeker in?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and my favorite red card right now, the 3-drop with backup that lets the other card sack itself for 1 mana.
But
Make a
Valdaren
jump
Thrill
deck with
Seeker,
this
yeah.
and the shakedown heavies and that dude and just +2 my heavy, fling him, and then next turn, I immediately get an 8/8 token or whatever because of the backup. Yeah.
Yeah, seems good. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see if it pans out. What's up next? We have
Well, there's one other card. So we got one other card that is going to be printed in the main set. I cannot express this enough. This card is not a bonus sheet include. We kind of saved the best for last, if you will. And that is Cavern of Souls. So here we are.
Yep.
Cavern
my
of
old
Souls is
friend.
going to be legal in Standard. If you're not familiar with Cavern of Souls, I'm guessing you haven't been playing Legacy and whatnot, and that's okay. So, with Cavern of Souls, as it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. It can tap to add 1 colorless that you can do with whatever you want, or tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered.
Nice make disappear.
Yeah, Cavern. I've played with Cavern and I played against Cavern in Standard. When it was legal in Standard, people were using this to cheat out Titans. They were playing Primeval Titan off of Cavern, uncounterable, which is arguably one of the most powerful things you can do. An uncounterable Primeval Titan was rough. But even in those days, that wasn't the best deck. Like Cavern was not some insane card that was everywhere. It really does shine in a very linear kind of tribal deck where you're playing all like humans in 5-color human in Modern back when that was a real deck. This card was insane. Yeah, in Merfolk, in whatever goblins, whatever. But like in well, again, I like to just focus on Standard usually because that's what I play the most of. But Pioneer, it's a big addition, right? Pioneer has a little bit more of that, but in Standard, I'm not sure how much play this card's gonna see. We'll see, I guess. Hell, if Pirates is a thing,
If
Tribal
Pirates is a thing, yeah.
coming out of the Cavern of Souls. Yeah.
That said, we also do see soldiers and humans being represented already. So this might be able to take those to the next level.
Maybe. Again, look at Simon Nielsen's blue-white Soldiers deck from the Pro Tour. It's not a Soldiers deck. It's definitely not enough to warrant a Cavern. I could see maybe 1 or 2, but even then, like those kind of decks naturally play so well around Make Disappear. Everything they play is 1 or 2 mana. I side my Make Disappears out against those decks. I bring in Temporary Lockdowns and more Cutdowns and Elspeth's Smite or whatever. So very powerful card. Super happy to see it reprinted because the price needed to come down. That's fantastic. Everybody loves that. But is it going to make a big impact in Standard? I don't think it will. I mean, it'll have to take a very specific, again, tribal deck or something to emerge. Right now, there's nothing like that, I think, in Standard. Like you said, the closest is Soldiers, and even that deck is, like, not really, Esper Legends, 26, 27 creatures. They're all different types. Like, I don't know what you could name.
I think I have an idea, though. What about the
of course you
domain
do.
decks? Having 2 of these, and you name Angel.
So that's what people mentioned.
Yeah.
On stream, we were talking about this yesterday. The problem is this doesn't make colored mana unless you're casting an Angel.
True.
Literally every other card. That deck, you can only play so many non-colored lands in that deck. You're playing like 10 Tri-lands or more. You're playing all these color sources. You can get away with 2 Mirrex, and that's usually what decks play, and they don't really deviate from that. Nobody's putting like extra Field of Ruins or other things. You really have to have a certain number of colored sources. So Cavern, I mean, it's an untapped land, that's good, but it doesn't help you cast anything. It doesn't contribute to domain. It doesn't, it's sketchy. Maybe 1, but even then, you might have to take out a Mirrex, or you could maybe do 2 Mirrex and 1 Cavern. Is that worth it? Maybe. I'd like to see it in the board. Imagine a Cavern in the board coming in against Control out of the 5-color ramp deck. That could be a sweet sideboard addition. but they're not going to suddenly play 3 of them. I doubt it. Like maybe 1, but
No,
yeah.
but
So yeah,
if that
Boy.
Atraxa comes down uncounterable, what do you do? I mean,
it's filthy.
That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
It's filthy for sure. It's a real cost in those decks. If there was
Yes.
a more less a mana intensive deck, sure, but yeah, I mean they can do it. Triland, the mana bases are great. We all know how insane the Trilands are in Standard right now. You can get away with murder, but I don't know. Maybe I could see 1. I'd love to see something like that in the sideboard, assuming Esper Control gets really popular or has because right now it's not like those kind of control decks. I don't even know if that deck the ramp deck needs something like this. Esper midrange does side in a bunch of D-strokes and stuff, so maybe you could bring in the Cavern, or maybe have 1 in the main deck. I could see 1. I could see 1 in that deck. You're right. I think it's actually good, but not being able to herd migration off it. Yeah, it's just Atraxa, really. It's just the 1 Atraxa. Is that worth that land? I don't know. We'll see. I guess.
Yeah, but I think
very interesting.
I think it does come down to the fact that like right now a lot of the power in control isn't how good the sweepers and the removal is. It's not necessarily the counter spells right now. Yeah.
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 Make the spear solid, but it's not
Totally.
it's not ideal. It's dead in late game and stuff. Yeah. So very cool. There were some additional cards. You said there was the treasure troves, but then what else are they jamming into these packs for us?
Well, yeah, we got the treasure troves, which they're going to be reprinting Mana Crypt in that slot. Which if you're a commander player, Mana Crypts are cheaper now. CEDH players
Sign me up.
Oh, here we go.
$5 booster packs. I can open up Mana Crypt. Please.
Which it's funny. So this is one of those things. If you want to win more commander games, you just should have this card. I'm not a big fan of it myself, just because like whoever draws it has just a shockingly unfair advantage. It just is what it is. And as a result, it sees a lot of play in like CEDH, and a lot of casual pods are like, could you not do that? And that's it is what it is.
My blue deck wants it.
Oh, of course, yeah. So it's gonna be here. There are gonna be other cards in that slot as well, but they're also gonna have what are called special guests, which are going to apparently be creatures.
So one of them is Lord of Atlantis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen
Lord of
so
Atlantis randomly. That is a bizarre card to reprint. Great, I guess. It's expensive, right? I think Lord's
it's like a couple bucks.
Oh,
yeah, it's always floated like a couple bucks.
Oh, okay.
But what's more interesting about it is there are merfolk on Ixalan.
Mm-hmm.
So I can draft this card in my merfolk draft deck and give my merfolk Island Walk.
So is that why they reprint? Like, I'm trying to figure out why they added this. Was it a value add? No, it's only a couple bucks. Oh, okay.
Nope.
Then wait, now I'm confused. Is this just for limited? A limited value add? Do you think?
Could be.
It's weird, right? It's
part
a
of
weird
it.
reprint.
Yeah.
Sure, you're right. Merfolk, yeah, that tracks.
I mean, Lord of Atlantis hasn't been reprinted in a very long time. I think it was time shifted last, right?
Okay.
So, like, these cards, remember, they only stay legal in the formats that they are legal now. So it's not like we get Lord of Atlantis in Standard, which is super sad for me.
That's a bummer.
So I do
we have
like
a couple
jam
other,
some fish.
we have some other interesting merfolk, and there will be others in Ixalan. So it would have been awesome. But here we are. Yeah.
You have to settle for pirates.
Exactly.
And then these other ones. So there's another couple of cards that were spoiled.
Indeed.
There's the other treasure troves. They did show a coercive portal reprint.
Yes.
Which is definitely a commander card, right? Because Will of the Council.
Yeah.
Oh, is that? that was a
awesome
reprint.
too.
That wasn't Conspiracy. I didn't even realize that. Yeah. It's a commander thing. Yeah, you can see it even has what I believe is the Ixalan commander set symbol on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Will of the Council artifact where it can be a board wipe if everybody agrees the board needs to get wiped. Or if a majority of people agree that the board needs to get wiped. So if one person has gotten too big for their britches, this can knock them down.
It's a good one.
It's
good in Cube. I've played it in Cube. It's excellent.
Ooh,
in
okay.
Cube, or it was. But yeah.
I believe it.
But let's talk about the elephant in the room here, or should I say, dinosaur. We're going to a new place for Universes Beyond,
Indeed.
and I already kind of blew it right at the top of the episode.
Dinosaurs. We're gonna go see some dinosaurs.
What's up with Jeff Goldblum on a Magic card? I
Hell
never thought I
yeah.
would see the word scientist is on a Magic card. I think it's the first creature type scientist we've ever seen, right?
That's what I'm naming when I play Cavern of Souls.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah.
Can I build a scientist tribal deck after this set drops? I don't know. Maybe.
Here's hoping.
But
I love how human is right there. But
Malcolm.
no. We're going scientist with this cavern. That's
I have you know I can play my Masswood Nexus, and all of my creatures are scientists.
true.
Fair.
Yeah.
Ooh, a team of scientists beating you down with
That's
a
it.
bunch of their glasses with straps on the back and
Exactly. Oh, the tape on the nose bridge, and let's go. Fear our pocket protectors. Haha. Oh,
So
I love it.
This is a commander card, obviously. Legendary creature for 2/2 for 3. Whenever it draws player draws, so it's the draw 2 mechanic, right?
Yeah,
Whenever
whenever
player draws their second card.
Yeah, the
you
second
do it,
card
Han. You're
each
so
turn.
much better at it.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Between this and my other podcasts, I've been doing this for a while. So whenever a player draws their second card each turn, that player exiles the top card of their library. During each player's turn, that player may cast a spell from among the cards they don't own, exiled with Ian Malcolm, Chaotician, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So what you're getting here is kind of like a hive mind style effect where you're basically drawing your opponent's cards, which is kind of weird. But note as well, this triggers whenever a player draws their second card. And so if somebody is drawing a lot of cards, they're also giving cards to their opponents. They still draw the card. It's not a replacement effect. But they flip the top card into exile, and then any of their opponents can then spend mana on that card, which kind of rules. Because, maybe that's the counter spell that you're going to use to counter whatever they try to play next. Or maybe that's removal for their thing. Like, if you're doing a controlling style deck, you do not want this in there, because you do not want to be feeding your opponent's answers. Unless you're doing Commander and you're doing some political nonsense, and like that actually could be a lot of fun now that I think about it.
This looks like a very fun Commander card. This is the kind of random, crazy nonsense. It's like if you play D&D and you have a wild magic sorcerer or something, and you're just like, well, and your party's like, okay, well, here we go, I guess.
Yeah.
Spin the die.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
love the idea of just like opt and let's just see what y'all get. Boom.
Yeah, I have a friend who plays like just a chaos commander deck. Like world goes wild during the game, and this card slots in that deck very well.
Yeah, it seems like a fun commander card. I'd like to see more of that stuff get printed, and of course it's easy to kill, so if anybody wants to stop the nonsense at any point, they probably can. And it's pretty cool. They did spoil one other Jurassic Park card here, so I presume before we move off of Ian Malcolm, I presume Grant, Dr. Grant is going to show up, and I don't know how many of these characters they put in. Did they announce? They didn't really announce any others. The whole cast here. Do we know?
No, they only announced 2, right, so far.
Yeah, they've only shown us a couple. We've seen Ian Malcolm. They also showed off. There were 2 others that they showed.
The 12.
The other one that I'm going to get to, honestly, this is one I'm least excited about. I'm going to share next so that we can end with a banger. The next one that they showed is Indominus Rex Alpha. This is, I guess, something from Jurassic World, so it's part of the newer canon. Which I have to admit I'm not as...
Excuse me. What?
What now?
Oh, I love that third Jurassic Park movie. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
God, it was terrible. Oh, so bad. Yeah,
let us know in the comments below what you think about the third Jurassic Park movie.
You know what? I think about how moved I was when that raptor just said Alan, like so much. You have no idea. Anyway,
I was moved to tears. Yeah.
But yeah, so Indominus Rex, if I'm not mistaken, this is from the Chris Pratt era of the Jurassic World franchise. It is 1 Hybrid Dimir green, so we got Sultai for a 6/6. So it's a 6/6 for 5. And then as Indominus Rex Alpha enters the battlefield, discard any number of creature cards. It enters with a flying counter on it if a card discarded this way has flying. Same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Haste, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. When Indominus Rex enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, let me just start by saying they've got a keyword, this ridiculous, like who is that white Audric, same thing. This is for blah, 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 blah. And the Crystal Golem and First Strike, da, da, da.
Yep.
Just call it all dressed or whatever. I don't know. Call it like something where, all the flavors. It's the soup mechanic where literally all the evergreen keywords are on it because it's so wordy. But it's the same as all the abilities, Well, and they could have just said it enters with a counter on it
like corresponding to each keyword
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Like,
I mean, they easily
there's gotta
could have
be a
done
better
that.
way.
But then people would be
Yeah.
putting this in decks with like Gabriel Angel Fire to give it rampage and
Yeah.
stuff. Which honestly, I'm
Banding.
whatever. Like give it banding, I don't care. Like you know,
Rex Alpha with banding.
like I have zero issue with that. If people want to get weird with it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
kinda
like
cool.
I get that they did it so that that doesn't happen, but at the same time, like, yeah, no, I agree. They need to like canonize what are the keywords and just like lock that in and make it a thing. Yeah, agreed. Because there are a lot of effects that have this. We have Odric. We have like Soul Eater from the new Kamigawa, that sword that
Oh,
can
yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
you know,
Yeah.
in that like imprints, but it doesn't say imprint on it, and then it's all the
Soul
keywords.
Slayer and there's
Yeah,
so many
all that stuff.
Chimera,
Yep.
But,
No, this is something that we see quite a bit, and it's just that. And so this, like, I can imagine this in the 99 of like a mimeoplasm deck could be just absolutely insane because you get to completely load your graveyard. It's a big fatty, you know. If you care about your graveyard, if you want big dumb things,
draws
this
you a
is
bunch of
another option to
cards.
do that, and it is legendary, so it can be your commander. So, all right, cool.
I love how it was an innocent green creature, just how Mother Nature intended, and then we injected that blue-black. Oh, look at that! That's what's giving it that. You can tell in the casting cost how we corrupted it, and now it's got this blue-black random hybrid mana in its mana cost. That's the human intervention there. The genetic testing, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if Commander already has, well, the answer's probably there, but like already has a Commander deck focused on keywords. That's one in this color combination, like, but this definitely seems like the Commander for that type of a strategy. I mean,
Right.
if I'm building a Commander deck with this card, it's got all the Reanimator spells in it and doesn't give a damn how many cards I'm discarding, right? Like,
100%.
let's take a look at like Lich Knight's Conquest from Wilds of Eldraine. Like,
Oh,
I want that card in this deck, right?
buddy.
I want to discard all of those creatures, and I want to do something that probably gets me like treasures or clues in play, which is already in Sultai, right? And just sack all of those and put all the keyworded cards back on the battlefield. And I really like how this card refills your hand. So if I discard 3 cards with 3 different things, bam, I get my 3 cards back. I got this Rex Alpha that's like, good luck trying to kill me. Especially if you discard cards with like Indestructible and Hexproof. I mean, but this, you know, you get to play like your Soul Flayer in this type of a deck. You get to play your like Necrotic Ooze in this type of a deck too, right? Like all of those seem like sweet cards. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
And
Yeah, it
any
looks
excuse to put a slippery boggle in my deck, I'm down for, and you could definitely do that because
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
pretty cool. I mean, despite how lame the movies were, this is actually interesting, this dinosaur and the crossover for Ixalan with dinosaurs. Like, okay, I get it. It's a little on the nose, but why not? Jurassic Park for Ixalan?
Why
Sure.
not?
So I don't know what the other like dinosaur characters are gonna be. Like, I know there's other dinosaurs featured in those movies, but the raptors and the, you know, I wonder if we're gonna see like less aggressive dinosaurs, like there's an Alpatosaurus or whatever, like some, you know, giant plant eating.
I mean,
It's gonna
there were a lot of moments in those movies with the more peaceful animals, so I certainly hope that they're represented.
Yeah, white green, you know, brontosaur that sneezes on other creatures and covers them in ooze, or
There you go.
for Toxrill or whatever.
More slime counters.
Oh, watch out.
But you know, one more thing before I think we're gonna wrap it up in a bit here. We've been going quite a while, right?
Yeah,
But before we stop, I've got to ask. I'm looking at the mana crypts. I see there's a mana crypt for every color. There's 5, right? I mean, the white one is yellow, but there's yellow, green, blue, purple, red, and then there's 7. Sorry, right. What is there's a rainbow. Wait, what? There's 7? Why?
There's 7. There's
Apparently.
1 for each color. There's
Yeah.
an extra red one on the outside. So not an inside crypt that's red, but like the outside border of the card is red. And then there's the colorless
weird.
version with the rainbow around the inside.
Yeah, the rainbow one. So I was gonna say, back when we saw this first cycle happen was in Neon
Dynasty.
Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty,
Right.
and we saw the Hidetsugu ones, and the red one was like double the price of all the other
Like
ones. 'cause
$1,400.
Red.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here we are with the mana crypts. So before we go, I wanted to ask you guys, what is the over/under on the rarest one, which I thought was the rainbow one, but now I'm seeing there's like 2. I think it's going to be the rainbow one. And what do we think that one? That's got to be the most expensive. Or do you think it's going to be red again?
I think it's going to be the one with the red border with the yellow on the inside.
but not
because
full
that's
red,
the one
yeah.
that doesn't match any type of a theme
Mm-hmm.
here, right? I want to think the colorless one with the rainbow inside is going to be common. The other ones are going to be rare to get, like the colored ones, one for each color. And then this one that you have up on
Wait.
the screen now is got to be the rarest one.
Did you did they actually say which, like, they were different rarities, like the Kamigawa ones with Hitotsugu, were they all different like, or is equally, the chance of pulling one of them was all the same, or was the red one more rare?
No, the red one is the rarest. It's the least
Oh, it
amount
is
that
the
there are.
rarest.
It
It was
by a lot.
Oh.
Yeah.
it was like them doing
Mhm.
serialized cards without putting serial numbers
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's
right.
why, like, if you have a yellow one or a green one, like, it's fine. It's still
funny.
worth a couple $100, but the red one is like that. That
I
was
thought-
the. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it, like, reading and going, wow, that's ridiculous. Magic players are nuts. They just want because the red one is the bright, like, the most visually kind of, like, attractive.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna spend a bunch of money, that's why I thought it was purely because of demand. You're saying the rarities are all different. So yeah, then I guess that'll dictate the price. So I'm not sure which one is the rarest here, but I'm guessing at least a couple grand for one of these, maybe $3,000.
Yeah,
over
they
under.
didn't say if they were doing serialized cards or not for the set, right?
I don't believe they
think
confirmed that
did,
one way or
no.
the other yet.
Because
Yeah.
I remember they were pretty early on in Eldraine saying there are no serialized cards in the set, but I don't think they announced that there isn't for this one. And so, hey, if they start slapping serial numbers on these mana crypts,
Yeah.
that I mean,
I know,
in my
the
opinion,
serial
if I
numbers.
was Wizards, I would slap all of the serial numbers on all the mana crypts because
Yeah.
you want to sell packs. This is your chase card to hit out of the pack. You are increasing accessibility for mana crypt amongst your commander community who wants them. Well, at least a good portion that does. And
Yeah.
I would.
I think
I will be
the
very
drawback-
surprised if they don't.
Well, the drawback, of course, I think the more they do that stuff, the weaker it gets. I mean, it's the same with the sports card industry when they started doing serialized cards, and it tanked the entire industry. Like, that kind of stuff was what caused that all to die. I think you can do it too much. I'm just worried. Like, okay, the One Ring and the different ring stuff, that was very like thematic with Lord of the Rings, of course. So I get it, but the more they do that, the less desire I have to want to get any serialized anything, because there's everything serialized now, which means it all kind of, you know what I mean? So I agree with you. I would love to, see more value added. I would love to pull a $5,000 mana crypt instead of a $2,000 one, but
Yeah, but
I don't
it's funny you
know.
mention that. I've cracked one serialized card, and I was really happy to see it. It was really cool, and I genuinely regret not selling it immediately. It was in MagicCon Las Vegas. I still have it. It's a cool thing. It's a serialized Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma.
Oh, wow.
Cool card.
I
It's
saw
neat.
that. I remember we opened that. Yeah,
because I posted it immediately.
It was serialized.
It was a fun hit, but like over the last few months, I've watched that go from a $250 card down to a $150 card, and it's only going down at this point. And I think that's because of over serialization. There was a time when a serialized card was something special, and now certain serial, that's one of the things. Like, if you really want a Goreclaw, sure. But even then, a serialized Goreclaw, like, the number it's like 240 something. Like, I don't even remember. It's not like, it doesn't
like number 69
I didn't open
or
number 1 or
420
number
or
69 or
whatever.
anything like that. Yeah. But like, if you want a serialized Goreclaw, if I post that, you can shop around. Like, there are multiple people who have those available right now. Getting a serialized Mana Crypt or a serialized One Ring, or a serialized, like, Soul Ring, rather. Like, those are much tougher to find because, like, they're good cards that people are seeking.
Everybody plays them.
Out.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think just having a random serialized card that's special to a handful of people is cool, but they cheapen the whole thing. They do.
Well, I don't think they should never do it again, but they have to be very careful. That's all. They just can't do it every set, right?
They did announce at Vegas, though, that with the Lord of the Rings set that's coming out for the holidays, that there are going to be 100 more serialized The One Rings, but a special art. It's got like the metal, like, music poster looking one, and it showed an X out of 100 for them. So I'm curious now where the bar is set, because it's not the original One Ring art. It's like a promo card, but they're going to be
like
in those
metal
packs.
Poster? I know that's definitely what I associate with Lord of the Rings.
If I open one, I'm going to call up Posty, Be like,
Yep.
hey,
You want one of
guess what,
these?
buddy?
Need another one?
I got something you like.
Say sorry, you set
Yeah.
the bar.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. At some point, even he's gonna be like, nah, I'm good. Like I have one. Like there's a bunch. All right, well, I kind of regret paying that much for that one because now I don't know.
Yes,
Eventually,
this image you have
Found
on
it.
the screen now. Yep.
is that it? Oh
That's it.
my god.
I
What?
have to admit, I kind of hate this.
It's gonna be worth a lot of money. I mean, obviously, but that is the most ridiculous looking Magic card I've ever seen
Yeah.
in my life.
Oh, if I go
That
over to
looks
my
like-
buddy's house and this is a blacklight poster, all right, rad, dude.
It,
But
it looks like. Do you remember? Well, as a kid, I remember the slime pail kids, and like you would get these
Yep.
cards, and that was the kind of art. It was really like gory and kind of like disgusting and stuff,
Yep.
and it looked like that. Wow, slime pail kids, One Ring, probably gonna go for a lot of money, but 1 of 100,
Yeah.
you said, yeah.
well, and
Jeez.
they did this for a handful of other cards as well. This particular treatment, I saw a lot of different
Yeah.
images. And the reality is like they did a Saruman of many colors in this style. And I don't know why you took a card that was unintelligible when you could actually read the text and put it like this. Like,
Yeah.
what? Do you actually expect someone to read that for the first time and understand what the heck is going on? Like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine. You
And
know,
these kind of things for a secret layer is cool. Like the VCR or
Sure.
the like VHS
Yeah.
tape ones. I thought those were really cool. They looked
those
like the
were neat.
baseball player, planeswalkers. Okay, like kind
It
of
was
neat.
fun.
But
Yeah.
this is like a high-end, super expensive, super special thing, and you give it this goofy treatment? Like this is for like secret layers to me. But again, this is my opinion. I'm sure there are people who are over the
Yeah.
moon with this, but it's crazy to see. I can't even
wild.
read it really. Okay,
Yeah, well, and that's the
super
thing.
cool.
It's the fact that the lines don't like actually form lines. Like the text, like it hurts to try to read, and then they put
hurts
all of
my
the
eyes.
text from the card onto it. Like, why? Why would you do that? It's
Make it,
I
yeah,
don't-
make it textless. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just make it
that would be
textless.
cooler.
Just give us a full art version. That's all this psychedelic stuff. Great.
You
Like,
know,
it's
speaking of text and textless, I'm looking at maybe the last thing we should talk about after we keep going on to one more and one more. But the
Just one
basic,
more thing.
the basic plains, the basic swamp, the basic lands in this
Yes.
set got spoiled, and the art is very unique. We're looking at a full art, borderless card. Or not borderless. I guess it does have an actual border, but frame or whatever. No frame. But then it's got in big letters on the bottom: swamp, basic land; plains, basic land. Mountain. Each one has its writing. What do you guys think of this style?
I actually like this because
like
we've
it?
been getting too many of the full art lands, in my opinion,
Yeah.
in standard sets, and this makes it look different than the other full art lands we've been getting because they've all essentially been the same type. Not of art.
You're right.
That's not what I
You're
mean.
right.
But this looks thematically different than all the
Yeah.
other full arts do.
I like the whole design. Oh, sorry, Ham. Go ahead.
no, it's all good. I'm with you actually. I like this. Honestly, I enjoy the fact that we're getting full art lands with like every set now. And I enjoy that from a player's perspective because now as a commander player, if I just want to have some like pimped out basic lands, there are thousands of them for me to choose from, and I can fit a certain theme with my deck, and I can get a ton of them without breaking the bank. Like, I like that. I think that's fine. From a collector perspective, stop it already. Like, I get that. I totally do.
I
And
know.
it's funny, because I can't think of any logical reason why I shouldn't enjoy these. Because they're a cool stylistic take. They're even willing to take a kind of artistic liberty with the mana symbol, which is something that in a lot of the other designs has
Yeah.
been kind of sacrosanct.
I
But
love
I think
it.
that's interesting.
I love the mana symbols.
I think that's cool.
Can you show a couple other of the lands?
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
all look so sweet. I would just love to see that mana symbol in the bottom and no text. Why do I need the big blocky mountain? I know it's I guess, but you know what? I think that's why they had to put the word on the bottom. When I look at the art, look, there's the island. Can
Yeah.
you show the swamp after this? Look at
Absolutely.
the island and look at the swamp. I mean, the problem with these my issue usually when I see a cycle of full art lands, some of them, like the Kamigawa Mountain is infamous for this, right?
Right.
This looks like it could be an island. Like
Easy.
it's kind of, well, on my screen over here, it's like bluish. It's like, like this art is very ambiguous and it kind of, I think they had to put the name of the land, but then it says basic land underneath. Like, I don't know. I just want it to be cleaner, and that's the kind of the style I like. So, but I wish it was a little bit different. But the art style is super cool. There's some cycles of lands, and I think that's where for me that's the line when I can't tell the difference between a swamp and a mountain or a swamp and an island without it being written. Then I feel like it's not So it has to be more distinct than that. I don't know. It bugs me, but
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
these are nice though.
It's funny too because I was feeling like something was just kind of bugging me about these, and I couldn't quite figure it out. And I think I've got it. I think I've pinned down what it is. These, with the way that they have like the black border around the edge, but like there's no other boundary to the art.
Yeah.
They look very similar to those little throw me away like insert advertisement cards that you get in booster packs.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. You're right.
You know, like, because like this mountain could easily be like the QR code for like download MTG Arena. You know,
Yeah.
Scan for free pancakes.
Exactly.
For my
Like,
hop.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, for free pancakes, I'm not mad at that. Yeah. But anyway, like that's the vibe that these
You're
kind of
right.
like just at first glance, like it doesn't look like a Magic card. It actually does look like something that does show up in Magic card packs that I immediately just discard. Like I check the back to make sure there's not a token on it, and then just pitch it if there isn't.
Yeah,
You know?
it's too bad. I love the art too. It just doesn't. I don't know if it fits. Like again, for me, like the Innistrad full arts that you could get, the kind of special edition ones were the same, where they had figures in the art. Like there was a guy on a horse, and like this, there was a crowd of vampires in this, the one over here, and it's like, oh, I don't know. For me, maybe I'm a purist. I want it to look like a land or landscape, and these are almost borderline, like not. You know, and I think that's why they have to put the words on there, and the coloring's very, you know. So yeah, you're right. And then the maybe the frame too is making it look like maybe if they didn't actually write the words mountain basic land, swamp basic land, etc. on there, people would throw it away thinking it was just an insert or something. But yeah, it's interesting. Like to me, they just don't look like lands, but I still love the art. I love the style.
Oh, absolutely.
Man.
Yeah.
And
No, they're beautiful.
The
It's just
mana symbols. Yeah.
yeah, and I wonder like if they were to just reframe it. And maybe they would have had to change the way that change the art direction prior to getting them, obviously. But like, I'm thinking, even if it's just like, even if the mana symbol and the text was just higher up, like on the top, and then the display was below it, maybe I would feel differently. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, normally we're reading the name of the card on the top. I don't know. Something's it's just weird. I'm sure people are going to love them. There's people out there that will love
absolutely.
it, and I'm happy for them. And I want them to keep doing this. I want them every set. They should be doing weird stuff with the basics, because why not? We've done basics like basic style for how many years. Yeah, keep doing weird stuff. It doesn't have to always be the same frame or no frame or text or no text. But like I like them doing this, so I hope they keep doing it. These ones don't really strike a chord with me, but they definitely look cool, and I know somebody out there is going to love them. I want to see those mana symbols be redone like that.
Yeah, no, those are neat.
Again.
Yeah.
Those are cool. But anyway, well, did we get any jank mail this week?
Not as of yet, but you, dear listener, can submit jank mail to us over on Twitter. Feel free to tag at MagicJank with the hashtag jankmail, and we will actually review any questions that you have or any feedback that you have on air. We do appreciate that. So feel
We'll be
free
very
to jump
positive.
on there.
I will not criticize it too harshly, probably, depending on what you say. But we're always happy to read your emails. I really want to see what people think of all the things we talk about on here, or even the podcast itself, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Our various content. Yeah, please do send us an email. We'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. No, it would mean a ton. Also, feel free to hit us up. Our links for all of our various socials for all of us are in the description. Go click on those things. Hit the subscriptions, the follows, the bells, whatever they're called on all the various platforms. We would definitely appreciate it. It means a lot. By the way, also, if you made it this far, you must enjoy the kind of nonsense that we're putting down. And that means a lot. We appreciate it. All three of us are also independent content creators. We're also streaming over on Twitch and doing various things. So actually, gentlemen, would you like to tell the folks where they can find you? Damien, let's start with you. What's yeah, no, take it away.
Me first.
Floor's yours.
Damien F16 on all the platform. I mean, I post things randomly on TikTok and stuff, but it's mostly Twitch 6 days a week, and YouTube videos drop every single day at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. So right around the time I start streaming, and lots of different games on my YouTube channel. I play tons of different stuff, but Magic 5 days a week on Twitch, and 1 day of non-Magic as well. So join me there. I'd love to say hi and tell me what you think of the podcast.
Heck yeah. Carlo, what about you, my friend?
Yeah, so primarily you can find me on Twitch, CFavretto_Jr., just like it is on the screen for y'all that are watching. I mostly play Standard on Arena. I am community-centered content, so I play a lot of viewer decks all the time. I climb the ladder every season, in Standard at least, playing community-created decks, so if that's something that interests you, check it out. I'm also on all the other social platforms. So TikTok, Instagram, Twitter /X, whatever it's called now, and Threads, if that pickles your fancy. You can check me out on all those platforms. Same handle, _Jr. If you just want like some funny content, but not necessarily that serious, I mean, the TikTok page is where that's at. I also did post some videos from when we were away at Vegas. So if you want to check that out, please check it out there. And also on my Twitch VODs, you will find the draft that we did with Melissa DeTora and other community members, which is still live on my Twitch page. So if you want to check that out, please do.
Oh,
Heck,
man.
it
I'm
was
going to go
awesome. You
watch that
definitely
like tonight. I didn't realize that was up there. Sweet.
Yeah, y'all are definitely going to want to check that out because it was awesome. Very cool. And I am Hamhawks42 on the various places. I'm also primarily on Twitch 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I also do a lot of community-focused stuff. On Tuesday, I play viewer-submitted decks all day. And I also do what would I call Fight Me Friday, which is a fun event where you can literally, if you are interested in being able to say, hey, you know that one streamer dude? I totally took him down that one time. That is a service I offer on Fridays. You can come fight me and put me in my place. That is an option. A lot of times I end up bullying chat. It's never my goal, though, I promise.
you encounter me on the ladder, you can beat me up. It's easy to find. I get beaten up a lot by people. Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. This was an absolute blast. Thank you again to MagicJank.com for making it possible. And yeah, with that, we are going to bid you all a very fond adieu, and we will be back next week to talk about more magical happenings. So yeah, thanks so much, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.